everybody. I have Kathy joining me today, and we are going to be talking about the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition and the mission behind the organization. But before we dive into my questions for you, Kathy, can you give everybody a quick introduction?
Sure. So I'm Kathy Henrich. I am the CEO of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. I joined the coalition as their first CEO in January of this year. Prior to that, I've had executive experiences across the country with IBM and Accenture.
Wonderful. Thank you. So to get us started, I mentioned that we're going to be talking about the Tech Hub Coalition, but can you share a little bit about the passion behind the mission and what you guys are looking to do in the Milwaukee area?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition was formed a year ago as a nonprofit. And the reason it kind of grew out of an initiative first that was sponsored by Northwestern Mutual, which was it was created because of the difficulty in finding tech talent in the Milwaukee region, right? And as that grew, they added additional partners, et cetera, and formed it as a formal nonprofit. And today there's 60 organizations collaborating around this mission of doubling tech talent in the Milwaukee region. And if you really think about the why is really about both regional and prosperity, as well as individual prosperity. As we know, tech organizations, tech jobs actually have a 4 to 5x multiplier effect from an economic perspective. It's one of the fastest growing industries. And, you couple that with the fact that jobs in the tech area are typically about 60% higher than the average salary. These are truly life-changing jobs. And so this is an opportunity to bring wealth and prosperity to the region.
Can you dive into a little bit of the activities that you and the coalition are helping to drive towards that goal of doubling tech jobs in the Milwaukee area? Say that a couple of times fast.
Yeah, thank you. So when we think about this, when you talk about doubling and doing it on scale, right? We already have over 75,000 tech workers in the Milwaukee region, right? So when we think about it, we have to be thinking about how to execute on scale. And there are many wonderful programs, focused on building tech talent, and we partner, frankly, with all of them. But so when we think about it, we think of it in terms of how do I drive demand for tech jobs? And that includes the image of the region from our, beyond our beer and brats and Packers, right? And to one of really the tech region that we already are, but one where tech is largely embedded in transforming essential products and industries. So that's the first. The second is really around creating a robust startup ecosystem, both to drive jobs as well as to attract talent who are very interested in participating in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. The third is really around the growth of tech jobs, including the recruitment of tech companies to the region. But then you have to match that with the appropriate supply. And that supply we've broken down into areas around K through 20, where you're inspiring talent, but then retaining them into the region as well. Then into reskilling, and finally into attraction and retention of individuals in the region. Now, each of those has programs and focus areas, but let me give you a couple of examples of some of the things we're doing. So, for example, one of the first things we launched was actually an idea stage incubator. And the whole intent is we know that people have good ideas. The question is, where do you go with them? How do you start a company, right? Is it really something valid or not? And we've had over 110 individuals this year go through an idea stage incubator where you literally can start with a problem you want to solve. And we help you through the process of how to advance to testing the market and building that out. And we have at the other side of that 45 new firms that have been formed throughout this year. And I think even more impressively than that is the fact that over 65% of those come from diverse backgrounds, not the traditional white male that we think of in tech. So that, I think, is one. Another example is the virtual internship program that we ran this summer. This was spurred by COVID, and, where we saw a lot of students losing their internships as a result of it. And we wanted to make a difference in helping them continue their development, but at the same time, help them connect to local organizations. And within 6 weeks, we went from concept to execution in conjunction with the Commons in town. We had 700 applicants. We had 125 go through the program. So it was a huge success in terms of individuals collaborating, utilizing technology to solve problems. And then another good example is we just announced an apprenticeship of Greater Milwaukee, where we'll act as a multi-employer collaboration to scale apprenticeships here in the region. And those are all I'll call them programmatic, but then in the same token, we're working on structural supports, like strategic planning with the K through 12 districts to ensure that they have the resources that they need to be able to offer inclusive computer science to all students.
Very cool. I didn't realize that you guys had done that internship program with such a large group of students. And, 120 is pretty impressive in 6 weeks. Having gone through internship processes on my own, just as an individual, I can't imagine the scale that went into that. You also mentioned some ideas of apprenticeships and a little bit of the idea behind that incubator and the diversity that's coming out of that. One thing that you and I talked about while we were getting ready for this interview is that neither one of us came from a technical background. I went to school to be an educator, and I think you said, was it marketing? Am I correct in that?
Marketing.
Yeah, and so we both have a little bit of a non-traditional path, and we don't necessarily fit that stereotypical, white male in tech side of things. So can you talk a little bit about how diversity plays into the coalition's mission and the type of things that you guys are doing to encourage that non-traditional path into technology a bit more?
Yeah, first of all, you're absolutely right. I had a marketing major. I became a systems programmer, right? And literally, and I date myself when I say this, I literally read manuals on weekends to learn how to do that. And I think there's an important story in that, whether it's you or I, both of our stories have the same common theme, which is people have the capability of learning this if exposed to it. It is not rocket science, right? It is very logical, actually. So it is, if you think about computers working off of zeros and ones, it is logic-based and it's problem-solving based. And if you can solve problems and you can think in a logical way, you can learn computers. And I think that's an important message for everyone. And so, there is a couple of things in that comment. First of all, relative to diversity, the only way to get to a doubling of tech talent in the Milwaukee region is to do it in a way that mirrors the demographics of our region. We cannot attract, individuals into the region and double tech talent. Frankly, there's not only a shortage here in the region, there's a shortage across the country. And so we have to be looking at alternate sources. We will not have enough going through traditional 4-year degrees in technology coming out the other side as a technologist. And so we actually, one of the first things that we did is, to the point of creating structural supports, starting to build out what does a model employer look like, right? Because the employers play an important role here. They have to be able to consider hiring from non-traditional sources. So we defined that. The second thing we defined is a preferred provider network to help in reskilling of those individuals with pathways to employment. And then programmatically, we have been supporting, and I mentioned the apprenticeship model, utilizing that. But then, it's really interesting, that summer internship program I talked about. One of the most, I think, interesting pieces of data that came from that was we actually did that in it was across multiple disciplines. So you had everyone from marketing to fashion design to, deep computer science, all participating in solving problems together. And I think one of the things that was really interesting to me is over 90% came out at the other side of that experience and said, I now understand how important technology is to my career, regardless of whether I was in a technology-based career to start with. It is the basis of every career going forward. So I think that was really one thing. And what was equally interesting is those from technical or computer science kinds of backgrounds or engineering, et cetera, they actually said, wow, this was really cool. There was value in working in a cross-disciplinary way. Those individuals that didn't come out of tech, they actually had something to add into this problem solving. And so I think that is actually a really important message that came out of the virtual internship is cross-disciplinary teams are very important to being able to solve problems in ways that people can adopt technology as well.
Really like what you just said there about technology being a foundation for every career moving forward. That speaks directly to kind of the mission of these videos for me in helping educate people on digital transformation and what the future of work looks like for everybody. So it's exciting to hear that there's that mission is being, populated all over the place with the work that you guys are doing specifically. Well, and I want to say thank you for the work that you and the coalition are doing to help support this, specifically in Wisconsin. And I think this is a model that hopefully other people in other cities will look to replicate. I would encourage anybody that wants to learn more about the coalition to reach out to Kathy via LinkedIn or ask me. I can connect you guys via email as well. But Kathy, thank you so much for your time and sharing this information with us, and have a great day, everybody.